I'm Dan Kodsi. I'm here to talk to you about Legacy. For you that don't know me, I'm the developer of both Legacy and Paramount Miami World Center. I'm going to take you through some slides and give you some information. Before I start, though, I'd like to say, I'm speaking to you today with a very heavy heart. I think we're all watching the news today and hearing about terrible things that are happening in our country and around the world. We're seeing a lot of death. We're seeing a lot of rises in the virus and all the containment and shelter and quarantines and so forth that we're going through right now. And I know it's been a very stressful time for a lot of people. But what I wanted to do today was I wanted to shed some light on the other side of it. All we hear on the news is about the deaths and the rise in cases and so forth. But what's going to happen? A lot of people today are worried about what is going to happen to my life after COVID-19. What's going to happen to my business? What's going to happen to my livelihood? And so that's really important. And so it just so happens that we have a sister company called Participant Capital, which is the capital arm of our company. And so I did a presentation for them. This was a business presentation. I did a presentation for them on the business side of what's happening in the U.S. economy. And this is kind of the hard business facts that you don't get to hear on these real estate type programs. A lot of people are just talking about their projects and development and construction. What I'm going to do for about 15 or 20 minutes is I'm going to give you a really, really thorough background on what the U.S. government is doing, what the feds are doing today for the economy, the driving of capital that's being driven into the country. So there's a lot of real interesting facts that I'm going to share with you, and then I'm going to give you a really deep update on Legacy and a little bit different than what you've been hearing. Legacy. I think a lot of the presentation revolved around the Legacy amenities and the great hotel and residences and the microlux residences and so forth. Today I'm going to give you a little more in-depth information on why we're developing Legacy and what the purpose of Legacy is, and then a little bit more information and even show you a couple of new images, some new renderings that we've been working on. But first, let me give you a little bit of background. This is something I believe everyone after listening to this is going to feel a little bit better about their life and about their livelihood and about their future. So go ahead and click to the next, please. So we're going to talk about the status of the U.S. capital markets first. And so, like I said, this is not information you typically get on a real estate webinar. So when we look at this, a lot of us have seen it on the news, 2.2 trillion stimulus package. And so what does 2.2 trillion mean? I mean, this is a significant number. I don't think people realize what 2.2 trillion. If you look at our total GDP is $21.4 trillion. So this is about 10% of stimulation in our economy. That's significant. If you look at our stimulus package, if you look at countries like Brazil and Italy, our stimulus package is larger than their entire gross domestic product. So that's a pretty significant stimulus package, and I think everybody realizes that if the United States falls, the rest of the world falls. There's an old saying, when America sneezes, the rest of the world gets a cold. And so everyone realizes that we must preserve the United States, and the stabilization of the U.S. economy is important, not just to the U.S., but to the rest of the world. And so great things have happened, and I'm going to get into, a lot of people start to say, is this 2008 over again? Some of us that lived through 2008 don't want to live through it again. I'll vouch for that. And so this is not 2008. We're going to talk more about that. But some of the incredible things that happened at the Federal Reserve, some of us watch the news and we see some of the mockery that goes on between our president and some of the back and forth. But we need to know that we have a very strong Federal Reserve system here in America. We have a very strong federal government in general. And the Federal Reserve has taken incredible steps to preserve our economy. And these are steps that are, we're in uncharted territory, and they've taken steps that have never been done before. And so just, we hear about this, but I'm going to give you a little bit of light to explain to you why we're doing these steps, why the Federal Reserve has stepped in. And for instance, the Federal Reserve has cut interest rates to zero. The Federal Reserve are buying Treasury mortgage securities to basically, bolster confidence in the market. The Federal Reserve is taking all this credit right now and putting it on their own balance sheet. And so nobody realizes how important that is, but what that's doing is it's making sure that there's no collapse in the credit markets, and that's a huge, huge deal for everybody. You can go to the next slide, please. And so they created programs. For instance, there's a program called the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. And this is a very, very important act because this is the act that's going to keep businesses in business, in essence. Because imagine if businesses stop collapsing, people start paying their mortgages, people stop satisfying all their debt, whether it's commercial debt or personal debt. And so you can't do that. So $349 billion now have been allocated to small businesses. Businesses can borrow up to $10 million. And so what does this all mean? That means that businesses can get cash. Liquidity in the market is significant. And if you take this cash and if you use the cash to actually offset your payroll costs, meaning if you keep certain people employed. And so this is pretty smart because what the federal government is doing is saying we're going to give money to the businesses. These businesses are going to pay their employees are going to stay employed. They're going to get a paycheck. They're going to pay their rent. They're going to pay their costs, and they're going to continue to stimulate the economy. And so that's important to constantly be stimulating the economy. Yeah, I lost the slide here. Oh, there we go. And so I know some of you are concerned about the dollar and the rise of the dollar, and the dollar is rising slightly again. But yes, the dollar is rising, but the dollar is going to continue to remain strong. And you don't want to keep trying to target when the right time to buy the dollar. I mean, people need to start thinking in dollars. Dollar is the international currency. And so it's never a bad time to buy the dollar, because as long as you're living in a world of dollars, I know us in the United States, it's easy to say that, but some of you that sell within foreign countries, sometimes they're trying to, pin the dollar against, their own home currency. And so it's always a good time to buy the dollar. And so you can see the strength of the dollar. And we're not even at our peak levels that we were in 2016 and 2015. And it could very much go back to those peaks. And so it's just not a bad time to buy into US dollar. $30 billion have rolled in the past 45 days. So again, people see the US dollar as a major security. Next. And so this is the reason why, this is, if you look at demographics, the United States is going to continue to grow, and, population growth. And, people start questioning development. Is there going to be development, demand for development? Of course there's going to be demand for development. We're sitting in a country that has tremendous population growth year in, year out. And look at our population growth. If you look at countries like Japan, some of the other large economies in the world, Japan, Germany, look what happens to their population. They start to dwindle. They start to go the other way. And so population growth is huge for demand. It's huge for development. It's huge for the demand of if you have a buyer that's going to be buying a legacy product, and they're thinking to themselves, is there going to be demand for this in the future? It's like, oh yeah, well, there's going to be demand. We're in the United States here, and so there's a reason why there's a lot of influx of capital in the U.S. And this graph right here gives you one big reason. And so if you listen to Goldman Sachs, I think they seem to be one of the smartest ones on Wall Street. Goldman Sachs, they're estimating, so a recession, are we going into a recession? That's a big question. Well, what's the definition of a recession? Definition of recession is two consecutive negative quarters of GDP. So if you look at this graph, quarter one, we're probably going to suffer a negative GDP because of what we've been going through the past few weeks. And then next quarter, I mean, we all know that it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. The next 30 to 45 days, unfortunately, we're going to see horrible things happen with, a rise in death across the country and across the world, actually. And so it's a very scary time, a very sad time for families that are suffering. And I hope nobody on this phone call is suffering right now from this virus, or have a family member, of course, that's suffering. But then look at what happens in the third quarter. In the third quarter, we start to see GDP rise higher than it's been, or actually by the fourth quarter. And so why is that, right? What does Goldman Sachs know that the rest of us don't know? And what they know basically is that there's going to be pent-up demand. Once you get out of this, I think everyone who's sitting home right now is thinking the same thing I am, and that is, I can't wait to go travel. I can't wait to get to a restaurant. I can't wait to do all of these great things. And so everybody's thinking the same thing, and I think there's going to be a lot of stimulation. And so between now and then, this is why we have the stimulus package to kind of bridge us to this third quarter. And so we're going to hear a lot about unemployment rates. Today, I think they just announced 6 million people filed for unemployment. I think it goes higher. Now, does that mean they're unemployed? The answer is no. The vast majority, we own a hotel, for instance, in Puerto Rico, a Hyatt Regency. And so our hotel, did we fire everyone in our hotel? No. We furloughed them. What does furloughed mean? Furloughed basically is an absence. It's not a layoff. Basically, your position is still in place. We kept all their benefits are in place, their health insurance is in place, all their 401ks, everything is in place. And so their job is sitting there waiting for them. Sure, they're not getting paid, but if you keep going down some of these points, 70% of the people that actually lose their jobs are going to actually get more money out of unemployment than what they actually make. 70%. That means 70% of the population is actually going to make more money staying home than they actually made in their actual jobs. So that's a significant number. And so why is the government doing that? We can ask a lot of questions, but really it's all about stimulation, because if you look at 2008 when we did a stimulus package, the first 60 to 90 days after the stimulus package, the money went literally right back into the economy. And that's the purpose of a stimulus package, is to stimulate the economy, is to get money in people's hands, get them to spend it, and make sure the economy doesn't fail. The other thing that you need to keep notice is a lot of people are losing jobs, and they're not the people that are going to probably be staying in our hotels. They're not going to be people that are buying our residences. These are people that are in jobs that are lower earning jobs. Not to say that we should not take care of these people, which I think we are. The government is taking care of them. We've talked about the CARE Act and the stimulus package, but they are lower earning jobs. And the good news is, as soon as the restaurants start opening, the hotel starts opening, most of these positions are still waiting for these people, so they're going to be back employed. I mean, we're going to go back to a low unemployment rate we had about 3-4 weeks ago? No, we're not. We're probably not. Could we get there in a year? Possibly. We're probably not going to see that low unemployment rate for a while again. But I see that, probably sometime next year, we can start getting close again, assuming that we get all, everything else under control. We're going to talk more about that later. So what's happening in the real estate market? Banks are flush with cash. Institutional lenders, which were non-existent. A lot of people want to do this 2008 versus 2020. There was, I've lived through a lot of recessions in my career. This is not 2008. This is significantly different, and I'm going to show you a lot of graphs in the next few slides that show you why this is not 2008. And this is good information for everyone that's listening. This is something that we can distribute to you after this presentation. So you can have this information. You can be armed when you're talking to people. But why is this not 2008? Tremendous amount of capital. Institutional lenders. There was no institutional lenders in 2008. It was virtually all banks. So there was bank failures and everything else. You have institutional lenders sitting with dry powder. I'll explain that in a minute, what dry powder is. Loan value significantly lower. Imagine in 2009, 94% loan to value. So if you had a home and you had 6%, and your home dropped in value by 20%, what do you think you did? You stopped paying your mortgage, and that's pretty much what happened. Today, you're averaging 63%. So it's a different world that we're living in. We're not living in an over-leveraged world. We're not living in an oversupplied world. We had an oversupply of virtually every product. We knew that, if some of you have been in Miami a long time, we definitely had an oversupply of condominiums. We had an oversupply of throughout the country, office, retail. I mean, there was an oversupply of virtually all product line because the money overflowed during the early 2000s. And so we're not experiencing that at all. There's no oversupply right now at all. So that's a pretty significant difference. And I'm going to show you more differences if we keep going. Next thing. So dry powder, what is dry powder? That means capital. So all of these private equity firms, right? Imagine private equity firms raised $151 billion in private real estate funds last year. They're sitting on $319 billion in dry powder. They still need to put this capital out. So imagine in 2008, all these investment firms, right, were sitting on, not only were they not sitting on dry powder or capital, they were sitting on worthless paper. They were sitting on shares of paper that actually have no value because the credit markets crashed. And so, this is how Lehman Brothers and companies like that went out of business, because they woke up one day and they said, our paper is worthless. This is the opposite today. You have, the Blackstones of the Blackstone right over here sitting with $151 billion. As a matter of fact, at the end of last year, all their investors got very mad at them for sitting on too much cash and not deploying the capital fast enough. Right now, I think they, feel pretty smart about it, but I don't think anyone planned on this pandemic. But again, and if you look at the last one, $1.5 trillion in dry powder basically sitting on the sideline. So there's just a lot of capital in the market right now, being kind of standing on the sideline. So when you see the stock market drop and you see everything dropping, don't get scared. It's just the smarter people sitting with the money on the side that are saying, we're just not going to put it in right now. It's just too volatile. But starting probably in about 45 days, you're going to start to see the market start to prop up and start to become a little bit more stable, which is what we're used to. Thanks. And so some of the advantages in real estate, $170 billion in tax incentives. So, real estate, I feel that they're almost giving too much, but I'm not going to complain because I'm in the real estate business. But $170 billion in tax incentives, you're allowed to write down, which was limited to $500,000 a year. The hotel industry, which this is partially a hotel, is going to receive about $150 billion in stimulus cash. So, hotels don't go out of business. We know the cruise industry, the hotel industry, the airline industry are probably the most impacted by this. And restaurants, of course, food and beverage. So they're all getting stimulus package. There's forbearance on Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. So if you own an apartment project, there's a forbearance that if you need to delay your payments. And then, homes, what happens to your home, the value of your home? People are staying home right now. I think right now people are holding on to their home more than anything else. I don't think people are starting to dump homes, especially when you're average, 64% loan to value. Nobody's walking away from their home right now. As a matter of fact, today people really value their home, considering they're all staying in their homes. And last part is, construction is still ongoing, so we've not shut down construction unless you're in New York State, of course. Thanks. There's still plenty of foreign demand. You're still seeing U.S. real estate as being a safe haven. It'll continue to be a safe haven for all the points that I said. People who are smart understand the Federal Reserve is not going to let the U.S. economy collapse. The U.S. government's not going to let the U.S. economy collapse. We're not going to let it happen. And so there's still an influx of foreign capital coming into the market. And so this is a great graph. Look at this graph. If you look at, so everyone always says this 2008 or September 11th. This is September 11th. If we had to go back in time and try to compare this to something, why is it September 11th? September 11th came, it was unexpected. It came on us quick. It scared the crap out of us. People just froze, right? And so this is exactly the same thing. I mean, all the same things are happening right now. It came on us unexpected, still scaring the crap out of us. It's creating kind of the similar attributes. But look what happened after September 11th, 6.6. So during that recession, the value of real estate went up 6.6%. And so if you look at 2008, for all the reasons I told you, this is why we had major drops. And so we're not going to have that same, depreciation of value we had in 08 for all the reasons above, but this is proof in itself. And by the way, I lived through September 11th, of course. I was in business at the time, and I had a lot of active real estate projects. And I remember not being able to sell a single resident. I remember, September, October, November. I mean, these months kept going by. It was months, and it wasn't probably till early 2002 that we started seeing activity again. So this is not any different. I mean, we should not expect, a lot of activity over the next few months in any business. But I think it all picks up. Which we're going to talk about later. I'm going to talk about where we think it picks up. And this is just another graph. If you look at this graph closely, the peak is in 2008 and 9. You can see the peak of debt, and look at where we are. This is Q3 of 2019. Look how low debt is, U.S. real estate debt. So just a different world we're living in today. People need to stop thinking this is the next 2008, because it's not. And just to give a little bit of update on us, what's happening to our company. Thank God, our company is doing great. We're sitting, in a very strong cash position. We've been paying our I know what you care about, most people on this are we collecting commission payments? And the answer is absolutely. We continue to pay commission payments. We will continue to pay commission payments. We continue to pay our architects. We continue to pay all of our consultants. Everybody's continuing to get paid. Nothing stopped at RPC. Nothing stopped at our company. Nothing stopped at our projects. Everything's moving forward. The fact that construction is still open is still pretty good because we're still working a full boat. So, all of our company is fully intact. We're not letting anybody go. It's not like we're letting people go or we're thinking demise. Quite the opposite. Everybody is fully engaged. Thanks to technology, we still have our weekly meetings. Everybody's engaged, talking, working. All of our consultants, our architects, everybody that's working on legacy right now is fully engaged. And so we're not going to, so are we going to lose time? That's why I keep getting, we're going to lose time. The answer is yes. I think we're going to lose some time. It's just, it's a matter of, when we go in for permitting, I think the permitting process is going to take a little longer. Inspections right now are an issue. I don't think we're going to have an issue because we're probably not going to look for inspection until the fall. But we always said we're going to start third quarter of 2020. If you were to ask me 3-4 weeks ago, I would have said, we were probably shooting for August. Today, I'd probably say we're shooting for September. It could get pushed in October, but I'm talking, we're talking about a 60-day delay possibly. The good news is the permit office is still open. They've not shut down. So far, no shutdowns that are going to impact our ability to start, but just in general, because of what's happening, we do expect maybe some very minor delays, but nothing that will impact this project. So how do we get out of this? A lot of people ask, and we did this graph here to kind of show people what we think illustratively how we do get out of this. And so in our past conference, we had former Senator and Congressman Jeff Flake, who spoke on our behalf. He's actually an advisor to our company. And so we got a lot of inside information from government officials and so forth on how do we get out of this? How are we going to recover from this? And so if you look at this graph, this was based on all the information that we gathered. I know the president said that he expects April 30 to be the end of what we call the shelter in place. We could call it a quarantine, whatever we want to call it. We don't think it's going to be that soon. I think I was reading today that peak deaths in Florida are going to be in early May. And so, if I'm giving you bad news right now, I think you're going to have to live with the fact that you're not going back in 30 days. We expect this to probably last at least through May and possibly through the middle of June. And what happens in the middle of June is switch just turn on and everyone's back at work now. And I think we go through about a 4-month stabilization period, and that's going to be where we're going to implement certain rules. We're going to have chance where I think different protocols. If restaurants open, they're going to seat in every other table. We're going to have to be testing people, testing the people that serve food, testing people, and eventually I think every company is going to be forced to have to test their employees. And so you're going to be testing your employees. And then what happens to the older folks or the sensitive folks? I think they're going to have to remain on quarantine until this goes away. Anyone who's susceptible to potentially, death from the virus is going to have to continue the quarantine or shelter in place. And the rest of us are going to go to work. And are some of us going to catch it? Yes, some of us will. Fortunately, for some people, 25% of people don't get any symptoms from COVID-19. So some people won't know they have it, which is a reason why I think we need a test to make sure there isn't a larger spread. Of course, this is a coronavirus, which is similar to the SARS virus that they had in China a few years ago, which they do typically die in the summer. I know all the pros don't want to tell you that there's a chance that the virus will completely go away in the summer because of the heat, but there's a very high probability that will happen. But if you look at the graph by, towards the end of the year, we start to go back into normal operation. This is, again, well thought out. It was seconded by our ex-Senator Jeff Flake, who felt very strong about this graph and seeing it kind of move in this direction. So let's talk about what you all came here for, and I hope that was informative information for you. I wanted, like I said, to give everybody a little bit of hard business news. And like I said, I just finished giving this webinar to advisors, over 350 advisors around the world. And so I thought it would be great to share it with our real estate brokers as well, because we're all in this together, and everybody's important and part of creating all the developments and all the projects that we do. So let's talk about legacy. So again, I'm going to give you legacy from a different angle. You know, when you get your sales presentation, you're hearing again about all the, you know, all the great things we're doing with legacy, the micro-lux residences and the lifestyle and the bars and the lounges and the restaurants and this great medical concept that we're working on. But I'm going to give you a little different angle. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on why we did legacy, on the business model of legacy. What is the reason we're creating legacy? And legacy is not, it's not a Miami project. Legacy is a new brand. It's a mixed use brand that we're going to be looking to expand. Miami is actually our first prototype. So this is not just a one-shot project. We already have 2 other locations that we want to build legacies. Of course, Miami is going to be the first. It's our hometown. It's where we're based. And you know, we love Miami. We love Miami World Center. We have, you know, great admiration for what's happening in the city. But let me tell you a little bit about legacy. So let's go to the next slide. So legacy is a true mixed-use project, and like I said, I'm giving you a little different look at legacy that you don't typically get to see by our sales team. And so if you look at this, legacy has got a it's probably one of the most well-organized mixed-use projects. And if you look at retail, medical, wellness, office, hotel, condos, residences rather, restaurants, lounges, parking. So these are all different. You can see the percentages. So it's a well thought out project. And so this building is not a building, but it's an incredible, well-balanced business model. Next. And so this business model, and you know, when you start, people always say to you, go backwards, please. You went too far. Oh, this is next? No, go back one. Yeah, right there. Thanks. When we talk business model, what is legacy, right? And so, you know, you want to define what is legacy. And what we saw in the market is we saw incredible incredible rise, right? We saw these trends, and there were these incredible trends in really 3 aspects. So when we went out to do this, we did a lot of studies. We spent about a year studying what are the trends in hospitality? What are the trends in wellness? What are the trends in luxury living? We looked at Airbnb, all these different disruptors that came into the market. And we said, what is the future? What is the future really going to be when it comes to hospitality, when it comes to residences, when it comes to vacation homes and medical and so forth? And so when you look at this, you say, well, what we did is we said, well, there was major increases in luxury travel that's going to happen over the next year. Wellness travel is incredible. I mean, wellness travel grows over double what hospitality travel grows at. Medical tourism grows at around a rate of 25% a year, and with the United States being the largest location for medical tourism. And lifestyle, what is lifestyle? Lifestyle is those lifestyle hotels, the SLS, the Edition, right? Those hotels. Lifestyle hotels are in huge growth too, huge demand. But no one's ever actually said, well, I can be a lifestyle hotel, so I can stay at the SLS, or what the W used to be. I think the W is, lost its luster. Now Marriott has replaced the W with Edition. But I could go stay at a W or an SLS. But, I'm in this really party atmosphere. I don't really have the luxury that I get maybe in a St. Regis or a Ritz-Carlton or Four Seasons. But then when I go to a St. Regis or Four Seasons, it's a little bit boring. I really want to go to the restaurant and lounges that the SLS has, right? And then if I go to a wellness hotel, I'm eating salads every day, and after a long night of partying, I think in Miami, I think people might want to just have a hamburger. And so we did is we just took what we thought are the 3 largest trends and we combined it. And that's really what legacy is. It's taking the best trends in hospitality and combining it under one roof. And that's how we got basically combining luxury, lifestyle, and wellness. Next. Right. And so how do we get to that, right? So we have no, go back one. And so and you've seen this part, right? And this is all part of it, right? The lifestyle aspect of it is the lounge on the top floor, the international business lounge that we've talked about, the wellness and medical center that I'm going to talk a little bit more about that you've not. I'm going to give you new information today. You've not heard about the wellness and medical center. And then, the micro-lux residences. And why micro-lux residences? It's more than just we created these residences for our property. I'm going to tell you exactly why we did these micro-lux residences. Let's go to the next slide. And so this is the reason why. There's a percentage of the population, when we talked about disruptors and we talk about, the Airbnbs of the world, what did the Airbnbs do? They basically disrupted the hotel market, but not really, because there's still people, and there's a lot of people that still want that hotel experience. They want to be able to go to the restaurant downstairs. They want to be able to order a cocktail at the pool. They want room service. They want maid service. I mean, they want all of these things. And so, sure, you can go rent a 2-bedroom apartment on Brickell if you're coming from another place and you're saying I can rent a 2-bedroom on Airbnb for the same price as a hotel room. But now what, right? I'm in a condominium. The pool's pretty boring. I can't get anything at the pool. There's no services, no concierge, no room service. None of that exists. And I don't have that feeling. There's no lounge on the top. There's no beautiful lounge that I can go hang out in. And so basically all of the components of the vacation are gone. And so, a lot of people still, this is why the hotel market hasn't collapsed when Airbnb and some of these other, online platforms, what people thought were going to steal the business from hotels, they didn't steal the business because people want that experience. But now you run into a new issue, right? We have this huge millennial population here in the United States. And when you look at it, the millennials are entering that age right now where, they were young, they were having fun. I'm not saying they're not still young, they're still young, but they're reaching that age now where they're starting to get married, they're starting to have children. And now they've been used to going to SLS, they've been used to staying at the St. Regis or the Ritz-Carlton and, getting that luxury experience or getting that lifestyle experience. But now where do they go? And now they have children. Maybe they need a little kitchen. They need a place to boil water. They need a microwave. And you don't get that in a traditional hotel room. And that was really the birth of the Microlux residence. The Microlux residence, in essence, fills that gap that the Airbnbs can't fill and the hotels can't fill. And that's really how we came up with the Microlux residence, which is it's the size of a nice residence. It has all the components. It has your refrigerator, dishwasher, microwave, washer and dryer, big full-size refrigerators, cooktop. I mean, it's got everything you need that you'd have in an apartment. But then it has all the luxuries of a hotel. It has all the lounges, the restaurants, and everything else. So it's a great combination. We see a huge future demand for this product. I know you all are selling this product day in and day out. And this is maybe some information that you've not been able to get from the salespeople. And so it's probably an opportune time for me to give you some of this background of why the Microlux residence exists and why this is going to be really the future residence this is going to be the residence of the future for people that want second homes. I mean, listen, you can live there as a primary residence, of course, but it works as great as a second home or even as a real estate investment. And so I think you've all of you on this call have seen what the Microlux residence is, but this is really the crux of a Microlux residence. So in this residence here, this one bedroom, 1 bath, and 487 square feet. So what we also wanted to do is to keep the price affordable. So because somebody who's using this part-time or someone who's using even full-time or someone who's using it as an investment wants it to be affordable so they could either make a return on their investment or they could at least, cover their expenses if they end up using it a lot. And that's really what we wanted to do. And this has everything, it has every luxury. I mean, imagine a table for 4. When I tell people 487 square feet, we fit a full kitchen with a full-size refrigerator, a washer and dryer, a table for 4, a full living room, a king-size bed with, full closets, double vanities, private water closet, and a full-size shower, all in 480. So people they can't get their head around it. And so here it is. And so I know a lot of you have already been selling this product or in the midst of, selling or even closing sales on this. So this is, the quintessential Microlux residence. Of course, we have some smaller and some larger, but this is, we like to show this one as kind of our key, our largest inventory of units. And then, of course, these great renderings that we released, the sky bar, this, again, this ties back into the lifestyle. So, and so we talked about the luxury, we talked about the luxury appointments. We're, talking about the lifestyle components that we're going to have in this building. Of course, with the, the rooftop lounge, which is, this lounge, and I know I've heard all the comments. It's funny, I was reading Next Miami. I know a lot of you read Next Miami, and they always write, always in the comment section for some reason, they're always negative writers. But when we released this rendering, I never saw a slew of positive comments of, wow, this is an incredible space that's going to be part of Miami. I think the only negative comment was they said, we're not going to build it this nice, and that's not true. It's going to be nicer than what you're seeing. You haven't even seen, we're working on new renderings that we hope to release in the next few weeks that are even going to blow this rendering away. So it's pretty cool. Next. And so this is one thing we've not talked about. Health is the new wealth. We went through that slide quickly, but health is the new wealth, and probably not a better time than now to talk about health. But you know, this healthcare center is not just, you know, we slapped together a building. It's a 50,000 square foot full-blown. It'll be a full-blown healthcare center. We're talking to major, and I'm going to show you in another slide, but I'll just go ahead and leak it now. We're talking to major groups: Cleveland Clinic, Adventist. Adventist is a $4.4 billion medical group out of California that want to get into the Florida market. We're also talking to local University of Miami Health. We're talking to Jackson. And so we're talking to major groups. In some cases, we're thinking of combining major medical groups that want to be involved in what we're calling the future of healthcare. And this is really this. If you could look, those renderings on the side, these aren't shots that we just took. Those are actual renderings of our healthcare facilities. You could see this is going to be one of the most unique, modern, you know, futuristic medical centers in Miami and possibly in the United States. Next. And so how does that all work in a crisis like today? Well, a lot of people say, well, you're building a hotel, and you know, there's an old saying, right? I'd rather be lucky than smart. And I can't tell you, I predicted this pandemic, because I'd be lying. But we got pretty lucky, because as we're talking to groups right now, especially these big healthcare groups, they're all saying the same thing, and that is that you're perfectly positioned that even if there was another pandemic in the future, this medical center can convert into a central area for the pandemic, and our hotel could become a place for shelter-in-place quarantines, because by having a medical center, we have rooms that we can convert into, you know, into, in essence, you know, not hospital rooms, or rooms that could service as hospital rooms. So we'd have an entire area, we'd have a full staff on board. And so this hotel really converts. So some of these people in parts of the world right now, or especially in New York City, who are locked in their apartment and can't get out, would love to, you know, stay in a legacy. And so being an owner or being a member of our medical facility will give you first right. You know, of course, an owner can just take their own residence, but it'll give you the first right to come quarantine. So imagine you get, you know, great room service, great food. We could even set up, you know, private areas within the hotel that you can eat out with family. And so it could become a pretty incredible place for families to come during times like this, because God forbid someone does get sick, you have an entire medical team, medical staff downstairs. We put in certain sterilization protocols. Because we are a medical center, we can actually now move some of the stuff that you'd find in a hospital within our hotel. So we'd outfit it with medical gas, ventilators, you know, medical monitoring equipment, microbial and chemical resistant services. You know, so basically we would have these entire built-in, you know, isolations and enclosures in essence for you know, for pandemics such as COVID-19. So basically, we become a fully inclusive hospitality and medical facility with emergency services. We're going to have an on-site pharmacy. We can have, you know, allocated hotel rooms for medical recovery. Imagine someone gets sick, they need to be quarantined from their family. They can move into a different section of the hotel. So this is something that we're working on, which we'd be considering a well building that actually does convert. And the government, the U.S. government, wants this to happen. This is not something we're coming up with. This would be something where we're actually creating a service to the U.S. government where we can convert our hotel into this and stay open during pandemics. And then again, you know, I think all hotels are going to see, you know, creating safe and clean environments, you know, high quality air purification, sanitation. You know, I think you're going to find your remote control in a bag when you go into hotel rooms. But we're definitely going to put those protocols in place, and I think we expect to see a lot of that through the industry. And then again, I know if these renderings haven't been shared yet, this is our diagnostic center. This is going to be the most advanced diagnostic center. That bottom right is not a made-up drawing. That doesn't come from a movie. That's actually a center that you would go through different diagnostics. You would end up in this room, and this is a reveal room. This room would give you tremendous, and we're not, by the way, I know there's some renderings that I'm showing you here. Some of it we're not going to be sharing with you, but this is and please do not try to take these renderings or ask for them. But this is a reveal room. I probably shouldn't have said that. No, this is a reveal room. You better click out of this one quick. But this reveal room would have information about you, all your biometrics. This would be one of the most advanced diagnostic centers in the country. And then part of the wellness center, and again, we've not put this component yet in our brochure because we're still finalizing all of our pro formas and everything else, and of course our partnership. These are the type services that we're talking about. So of course we talked about the sanitizing Blue Wand, but we'd have air and water purification, infusion bars, teas and coffees, Eastern medicine bars, cryotherapy drip bars. A huge fitness center, group class, studios, Haman. I mean, this is a full-blown medical / wellness center. It'll actually, locals, some of you that live within the Miami area can actually become members of this medical center and fitness center and join. It's not just limited to owners or hotel guests. This is going to be something that will be open to other people within the Miami community. And so legacy partnerships, a lot of people are asking, what are we doing? And so we've not disclosed it, and we're expecting to have a big announcement. It probably would have been in a few weeks from now, but we're going to probably have to push it a little further. We are finalizing. We do have a signed LOI with a major hotel group, and so we'll be working in partnership with a major hotel brand. A hotel group rather. It'll still be legacy, but it'll be a partnership. They have 4,800 hotels and 704,000 rooms in 100 countries around the world. 38 different hotel brands, 150 restaurants. Then there's a different group that we're working with that has 150 restaurant and lounges worldwide. That's going to be our food and beverage group. And then the loyalty of over 70 million loyalty folks. So this is a major group that we're working with. We have a signed LOI. We're finalizing all our agreements. You got to imagine it takes time to, we literally have to sign 4 different agreements with them, from technical services all the way to management. So we are working on that. We're probably a few weeks away from signing that. Although we may postpone the announcement because of COVID-19. Although we may start sharing with you, but just be rest assured that there's going to be a major group running this, and the people are going to be running the lounges, the restaurants. When I say there's going to be lifestyle, this group is probably one of the top lifestyle groups in the world that are going to be part of Legacy. So it's a pretty big deal, and you're going to be very impressed when we do make that announcement. And as I said, for the health group, we are working with Cleveland Clinic, Adventist, or it could be a possible joint venture between the two, combined with one of the local medical groups. So it's all very major groups, major partnerships that we're going to be entering within Legacy. So Legacy is the whole purpose of Legacy is to combine these top professional large groups in the world to our brand. I mean, we're working on just beautiful finishes, but like I said, while you're going to have this really luxurious, beautiful hotel and residences, you're also going to have great lifestyle with all the restaurants and excitement, because we're in Miami, and in Miami we want to have action, and so we're not going to forget to bring the action. And I think that wraps it up. I don't know if there's anything else. Yeah, that's it. So I was good, stayed under my 1 hour allocated time. I really hope that you learned something today. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I wish I could do it for you all in person. Hopefully soon we will be able to do it where we can all gather around, and I can give you certain updates on the property, on the project, so we could get a little bit more acquainted. Right now I'm literally staring at a camera versus seeing all of your faces. But so I didn't get to see any reactions, but I'd like to hear about them, that's for sure. And I'm sure you'll be sharing them with all your sales associates and so forth. So again, thank you very much for joining in. If you have any questions, I know there's some questions floating around, please contact one of your associates and we'd be glad to answer any question. If you have any specific questions for me directly, I'm sure they'll share them with me, and I'll definitely get you the answer as soon as I can. All right. Anyway, have a good night. I hope everyone stays safe. Again, pray for everyone. Pray for everyone in this country and around the world. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining, and have a good night.